The budget process, an overview of funds. Now, what we're looking at here is basically an example city and how a city would be structured, or rather, how a city is structured by funds. So you'll notice going from left to right, we have the general fund, we have an administrative services fund, we have a utility fund, and a gas fund. Okay? And within each fund, you'll notice we have expenses and revenues. Expenses and revenues. In water utility, expenses and revenues, and the same thing for gas. Now, focusing specifically on the general fund for right now, you'll notice under the expenditure side, we have a police department, a public works department, a fire department, an economic development department, and a parks and recreation department. Now, all of these departments are highlighted here as general fund departments. Now, this may not be the same for every city or every local government, but in this city, in my scenario, this is what I've highlighted as commonly known general fund departments. Now, in most cases, the police department and a parks and recreation department will always be general fund departments. Okay? Now let's move over to the water utility fund. And under the expenditure side of the water utility fund, we have a water department, of course. And for the same thing for gas, we have a gas department. Now looking at their revenue structure, we have for water utility, we have the selling of water services to citizens and the selling of water services to businesses. And for gas, we have the selling of natural gas to residents, the selling of natural gas to businesses, and we also have the selling of natural gas to other local governments. So these are all revenue streams for the water utility and the gas utility funds. Okay. Now, looking at the revenue streams for the general fund, right, we have property taxes, local sales taxes, and fuel taxes, as well as transfers to and from transfers from other funds. Okay. Now, where are these transfers coming from? So let's look at our water utility fund and our gas fund, and you'll notice in their expenditure sides, we have transfer to general fund for water and a transfer to the general fund for gas. So the expenditure or the expenditures for water and for gas are revenues for the general fund, because in this scenario, the water utility department and the gas utility department are subsidizing the general fund. And that's very realistic. You'll find that oftentimes in local governments that have their own self-sustaining funds, such as a water utility or a gas utility or an electric utility type fund. Now, here's something that's a little different here. We have what we call an administrative fund, or rather an internal services fund. And looking at the expenditure side here, we have a finance department, we have a city attorney's office, and a human resources office. Okay, and their revenue comes from providing services to other departments. Now this makes sense because this is an internal services fund, so it's designed to provide services to internal departments within that city. So let's look at the city attorney's office, for example. The city attorney's office generates revenue by providing legal services to the water utility department. So, for example, if the water utility needed the city attorney's office to review a contract or to handle some type of litigation issue, the city attorney's office would then charge the water utility department, and that's how they generate their revenue. Okay. Now, the finance department and the human resources departments, their revenue streams are a bit different. So their billing is built into other departments. So what I mean is the police department, the public works department, the water department, and the gas and all other departments, they have a line item in their expenditures designed to automatically pay the finance department and the human resources department. Now, why are they doing this? Because all departments within the city need financial services. All departments within the city need human resources. Okay, so because these services are vital and they're built into the city structure of these departments and the way that they run, they are automatically billed on a quarterly or monthly basis, right? And the billing from these departments are used to support the finance department and the human resources department. So this is why these are internal services, because they're providing services to other governmental entities. So looking at this fund structure here, you can kind of get an idea as to how and why governments operate and segregate themselves into funds. Now, what is a fund? A fund is a self-balancing set of accounts with individual revenues, expenses, and fund balances. Okay. Now here we have, in this little box here, I have governmental funds rather. Governmental funds include things like the general fund, a special revenue fund, debt service, capital projects funds, and permanent funds. A general fund is basically a fund designed to handle general governmental services like police departments, parks and recreations, etc. A special revenue fund is designed to handle revenues for special one-time projects or special temporary projects. Debt services handle debt for the government. Capital project funds handle capital projects. And permanent funds generally are held as reserves. So looking at the type of funds that we have the governmental funds, as I had on the other slide. But on this slide, we have proprietary funds and fiduciary funds. Okay, proprietary funds include things like enterprise funds and internal services funds. Now, proprietary funds within themselves are funds designed to generate revenue. That's what they're designed for. Okay. Now we have two types of revenue generation. The enterprise funds generate revenue by selling services out on the market to the public, and internal services funds generate revenue by selling services to internal governments. Okay. Fiduciary funds are funds that are designed to hold money in trust for other people or other entities. So here we have pension funds as a type of fiduciary fund, and we have trust funds. Pension funds, as you know, are funds that are held in trust for people as they invest their money when they work. The government may hold that investment or the return on those investments within a pension fund, and then you will have access to that money when you retire. Trust funds, on the other hand, are funds that are just generally held in trust for other people or other entities for whatever reason. An example would be if a minor, right, loses both of her parents, unfortunately, and she has an estate, right? That estate might be held in trust with the state until that minor becomes 18. Okay.